Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be doing a tier list of each of Dream Theater's albums, including A Change of Seasons. Now, just to clarify, just to be clear, I didn't actually sit down all at once and just listen to every single album. I would be extremely fatigued if I actually did do that. See, what actually happened was, I listened to each of these albums at least twice over the course of a couple months or so. I allowed myself to have time with each release and just let it all soak in, give breathing room in between albums, and you see what I liked and see what I didn't like. And all of this was in preparation for the Dream Sonic tour that Dream Theater announced and came through and did with Devin Townsend, one of my favorite people in the world, as well as Animals as Leaders, who I have followed for over a decade and absolutely love their work. But I just never got around to diving deep into Dream Theater. I have the utmost respect for them. I think they're genius musicians. John Petrucci is a god among men. But I was only familiar with a handful of songs. Obviously like Pull Me Under, A Rite of Passage, Forsaken, As I Am. But that's pretty much it. The only album that I actually listened to all the way through was Systematic Chaos, because an old friend of mine who used to play drums with me, like we had like a little band. He let me borrow it, as well as the documentary for it. But that was like 12 years ago. So it was really interesting going through each of these albums one by one and just seeing exactly what these guys are all about and how their career has progressed and how their sound has developed over time. So I'm basically a noob when it comes to Dream Theater. I'm not like a Dream Theater nerd or anything like that. I guess you could call me a fan, but prog isn't necessarily my thing. I mean, apart from Devin Townsend, but I did. And some of my favorite bands are prog, don't get me wrong. I love Opeth. I love Gojira. I love semi-prog bands like Meshuggah and Mastodon, Tesseract, and does Vola count? Vola's awesome. Check them out. And one of my first favorite bands in the world ever was Rush. So, and how can I forget? Like, one of my favorite bands in the entire world is Tool. But enough babbling. Let's go ahead and get right into the tier list. Alright, so we have each of their albums here in chronological order. Alright, let's zoom in just a little bit. Alright, I think we are all set. I should have done this with the Sleep Token video. Alright, first album from Dream Theater, When Day and Dream Unite. So as a Dream Theater noob, I kind of concede with the popular opinion among fans. I think this is their weakest album. I'll put it in D. Not to say that it's bad or anything, but it's a far cry from what they go on to do. I don't mind songs like Eatsy Jam or Fortune and Lies. You can clearly tell that the talent is very much there from the get-go, but yeah, it's lacking for sure. Next is Images and Words, and honestly, this really doesn't go anywhere but S. From front to back, it is such a great album. It sounds great. It's just crafted perfectly. It's so focused from front to back. There's really nothing bad on it whatsoever. It's a very, very enjoyable record. Whether it be Pull Me Under or Another Day or Take the Time or Metropolis Part 1, it's a great album front to back. So ranking these albums would be a whole lot harder because, like I said, I've only heard them twice. So the order they're in doesn't really matter. Next up is Awake. I think I'll put that in A. Very much an enjoyable album with a little bit more of a bite, a little bit more of an edge to it. Not as good front to back as Images and Words, but it's still very, very solid. I got to see them play Caught in the Web live, which was really cool. It's a decent song, but I prefer songs like Erotomania, 6 O'Clock, Space Divest. Love the keys on this album. Can't tell you how many times I go back to the song Lie. I actually really dig that one a lot, especially the mirror into Lie. Next, we got A Change of Seasons. This is a strange one because it's an EP and 4 songs are just covers or medleys of covers. But the title track alone is actually pretty damn solid. If it wasn't weighed down by the other medleys, it'd be higher, but I think I'll put it in B. I do think A Change of Seasons is easily one of the best Dream Theater songs, though. Not much else to say about it, except like A Change of Seasons is a great friggin' song. Absolutely. Next is Falling Into Infinity, and I don't exactly see it when some Dream Theater fans say that this is underrated, because, I mean, it's really not that engaging. I mean, I do like some of the jazzy elements to it. It is a little more stripped back and toned down. I miss the guitar. Like, the guitar is not really front and center on this record at all. It really sounds like, I don't know, like 80s yacht rock. Like, just a little bit in some parts. But I will say Trial of Tears is a pretty solid track. Just Let Me Breathe is okay. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy it nearly as much as other albums. It's not bad, but I think I'll put it in D. Next up, the famous masterpiece, I would say, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from Memory. You know, this is the safe choice, but honestly, it's my favorite. I think overall, as a whole package, from front to back, it's so well polished, so well written, so well performed. It just great front to back. And seeing The Spirit Carries On performed live, especially with Devin Townsend on vocals, was such a treat to see. And with Tosin Navasi of Animals as Leaders doing the dual solo with John Bertucci, really, really cool. But damn, this album front to back, like the dazzling just arrangements and compositions on it, especially, like, really shine like the most on this album, I would say, at least up to this point, you know, arguably. Like, I've gone back to the song Home several times. Like, I absolutely love that song. Probably because it kind of sort of reminds me of Tool a little bit, but it's just amazing. And then Dance of Eternity is just like, how are they even playing that, you know? Excellent album, deserves all the praise it gets. And the follow-up, 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, I wasn't nearly as crazy about. I think it does drag a little bit. It's a bit of a lengthy one. I think the second disc is better than the first, but I think Misunderstood's a great track, and I remember liking The Great Debate as well, and The Glass House. Yeah, Misunderstood's easily one of the better Dream Theater songs, in my opinion. Really cool for fans of this record. On this last tour, they played the final 3 parts of the title track, 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, starting with Solitary Shell, I believe, which was cool. But I mean, overall, I think it's a solid album. I do like War Inside My Head and The Test That Stumped Them All. I think the songs are killer. But overall, I think personally, I'll put it in B. Next up is Train of Thought, and this one took a really interesting direction. It's a bit more simplified, a lot more stripped back, and a lot more grit, a lot more heaviness, like a lot more chunk. And I actually really appreciate that. I'm really drawn to that. So the fact that there's a lot more edge on this album, I was very much fond of. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, from front to back. Some really heavy moments. In one aspect, I do kind of miss a bit of the dazzle, but the fact that, like, there was, just straight up riffage on this album was really cool. I dug it quite a bit. I think I'll put Train of Thought in A. Then we have Octavarium. I really like this one. Yeah, no, this one's really great. Not too big on The Answer Lies Within. These Walls is okay. Never Enough is okay. Sacrifice Sons is okay. But everything else is just, holy crap, so good. Like, top of the line. Panic Attack is obviously one of the best songs. The Root of All Evil is awesome. The title track is like a Pink Floydian modern epic, which is really cool. Honestly, this will go up in A. And then the aforementioned Systematic Chaos. And I will say, from front to back, there is not a single bad song on this album. Like, hands down. I enjoyed every single song on here. I would say the most forgettable one for me, I would say, is probably Prophets of War. But either way, like, I found myself enjoying this one quite a bit. Whether it's part 1 and 2 of In the Presence of Enemies, or Constant Motion, just the great, the playing, the performances, it's just like the talent that these guys have is wow. Or The Dark Eternal Night, and just the twists and turns it makes. It's so catchy. Forsaken itself is so catchy. I love the moodiness of Repentance, which is like a little break right in the middle of the album. It's honestly so good. I remember, like, really enjoying this one. This is going to go up in S for me. Next is Black Clouds and Silver Linings, the last release with Mike Portnoy. And noticeably, I think the production took a little bit of a step back from the past few releases. But it's not to say that there's not bad material on here. I think A Nightmare to Remember is pretty cool. It actually kind of reminds me of, like, symphonic death metal. And then A Rite of Passage is a song I've been familiar with, and it's pretty solid. I really like the riffs. I think The Shattered Fortress is a really solid song. And I got to see all 20 minutes of The Count of Tuscany performed live. It was quite a treat to see, even if, I mean, come on, it's a 20-minute song. And The Best of Times is a good song too. Like, this is a really solid album. You know, upon first listen, I was like, but then upon second listen, I was like, okay, this is really good. I don't think it's nearly as good as, say, Train of Thought or Octavarium, so I think I'll put it in B, but it's not a bad album at all. It's actually a very good album. And this next one, A Dramatic Turn of Events, this is a very great album. Like, it kind of reminded me of Systematic Chaos in the fact that, like, I was engaged the whole way through. By the time this album was over, I was like, wait, it's over? Wow. Even though it's an hour and 20 minutes, like, few albums have actually like done that to me, you know? Literally every single song on here is so enjoyable. I was really hoping that they would play something from this album, like either On the Backs of Angels or Lost Not Forgotten, so that's kind of crappy. But this one was really, really good. I would say it's probably one of their best out of everything that I listened to. It's going to go up an S for me. Alright, then we have the self-titled Dream Theater album. While the production on a dramatic turn of events was excellent, I think they really over-modernized on self-titled. Like, the drums are super, like, compressed and clicky. I mean, it works for having that edgy metal sound, but at some points it was just a little too distracting, especially since, like, a lot of material on here was, like, straight up ripped from Rush, which is fine because I love Rush, but that kind of held back the album a bit. I think Illumination Theory is a pretty solid, 20-plus epic, but the Enemy Inside is such a banger. Oh my god. Front to back, it is pretty solid, but it's not top of the line for them. I will put it in B because I did enjoy it, regardless. Then we have, oh god, The Astonishing. So when it comes to The Astonishing, way too much of the material on here sounds exactly alike. Like, I don't really care. Like, it's these, slow, invigorating, emotive, power ballad-esque type passages, and there is enough variety to where it's fine, but there's just a little too much of that. Like, it's very cheesy. Like, it's very overdone, I mean, the story itself isn't very, like, original, let alone interesting. I mean, I did like the song Moment of Betrayal, and there are a lot of moments on this album I actually did quite like, but it reads to me, or sounds to me, I guess is more accurate, more like a movie than anything. Like, I get it, it's something different, but if they just trimmed it by, like, maybe, like, 30 or 40 minutes, it could have been a much more well-rounded album, in my opinion, because it just goes on and on. Like 2+ hours of music, and most of it being, like, power ballad-esque stuff is just a little too much. It's not bad, but, it is a bit of a drag. I'll put The Astonishing in C. Then we have Distance Over Time. From what I understand, they actually made this album in 18 days, and that's, like, pretty amazing. Well, I must say, James the Breeze vocals were actually pretty dynamic on The Astonishing, which, huge props, huge plus for the album. For these last two, not so much. Like, I didn't really get much from him at all, especially, like, lyric-wise, too. Like, it kind of shows that they didn't really sit with these songs, but it's still very impressive that it came out, as well and natural, I guess, as it did. I think At Wit's End is probably my favorite track on here. Pale Blue Dot is okay, but when it comes to comparing it to other releases, it doesn't quite hit the mark for me, but it's not a bad release. I'll put it in C. Then, A View from the Top of the World. I think it's slightly better, but it's not really saying much. There's nothing really new here, and there's better Dream Theater albums that I'd rather go back to. It was cool to see a few of the tracks from this album perform live, since they're still kind of promoting it. The Alien is actually really solid in my opinion. I like the riffs with Invisible Monster, but, like, other than that, the title track, which is like 24 minutes, is good. I think Awaken the Master is pretty interesting because I think that song's actually written on an 8-string, something like that. It's like really low tune, like G or E or something like that. Yeah, it's a Dream Theater album. I'll put it in C. Well, there we have it. There's their whole catalog by a Dream Theater newbie. And each of their respective tiers, according to my opinion. Don't Tell But Come the Night, but this is kind of somewhat similar to his tier list, with a few changes. But yeah, if you're new to Dream Theater, I would say these top 4 are, like, the best place to start, as well as Train of Thought. And if you're a longtime Dream Theater nerd, go ahead and roast me or fondle my sack in the comments. Either way, if you enjoyed this or if you want to see more, keep in touch, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a video. Like this video, leave a comment, or don't. It just doesn't matter, as long as you enjoy.